Hey, what's up? Hello, everyone. Welcome into Fantasy Filmball, the show where we turn movies into sports and sports into something we don't talk about here. My name is Matt.
And my name is Dyl. Today, we're bringing a new game to the channel. Fantasy Filmball. It's all about the games here. While we don't talk sports, we definitely talk movies. And this new one, it's high-low, but in terms of box office. So we're going to be going over all of the wide releases for the month of June, looking at some of its tracking numbers and saying, do we think it's going to go higher or lower than that? So before we dive into it, let us know some of your thoughts down below, because we're going to be talking movies like Across the Spider-Verse, The Flash, and the new Indiana Jones movie. So, some big heavy hitters. With that being said, though, drop a like, drop a dislike. It helps us out regardless. The algorithm, YouTube stuff, you hear it every video that you click on. Regardless, let's dive into this. June 2nd. We got two movies coming out, one a lot bigger than the other. So let's dive into this big one. Matt, I know you're really excited for this movie. So do you want to kick us off right here?
Oh, yeah. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. This one just had reactions come out for it, actually.
It did.
Which is really, really exciting. It is looking like it's going to be bigger than the first movie. So currently tracking is saying that this movie is going to make, on its opening weekend, between $85 to $105 million. So our middle point there is $95 million. So what do we think? Over, under? I'm going to say 95 sounds right, but maybe a little over. I feel a little bit unconfident saying 100, but I want to say 100.
Yeah, I'm really confused what to do with this movie, and I know the buzz is so good for it, but the original one, it did well at the box office, but it didn't set it on fire. It opened to $35 million in the middle of December, which I know isn't a huge weekend. It allows for legs, and it ended up making about 190 domestically. We did a summer outlook video on this channel a few weeks ago where I predicted the same to do big numbers, and 95 is about what I think I said in that video. I think I said 90-ish. So I'm going to lean to, I'm going to take the under here. So that way we can be different first off. I'm going to be under, but it's going to be just under. However, to eat my words here a little bit, the word of mouth on this is killing it. On the flip side, a little counter programming for the weekend of June 2nd is The Boogeyman, the new horror movie coming out of, Disney. They make horror classics. So this movie has had eyes on it at CinemaCon. People watched this, and they said it was pretty good. They didn't say it was revolutionary, but they walked out of it, said it delivered on the scares. It was an enjoyable, fun time. Tracking right now says it's between 19 and 26 million. So middle point again, 22 and a half. And to me, that sounds perfect. Again, I know tracking, it does its job right. Who would have guessed? My comparison point for this is going to be Evil Dead Rise. Evil Dead Rise did 24.5 million in its opening weekend, which was well over its projections. It kept gaining over the course of that weekend because of how strong the word of mouth is there. However, Evil Dead is a franchise. Boogeyman, it's not. It's based on a book from Stephen King, but it's not an established franchise. So I'm going to go on the under here as well. I think that 20 million, high, 15 to 20 seems a little bit more likely. But this could be a horror movie that doesn't have a steep decline week in and week out. I think it could hold pretty well in the coming weeks. I just think a lot of its target demographic is going to be, younger kids who want to go see a scary movie. It just so happens, the number one movie for young people coming out this summer is the same weekend.
I'm going to say over 22.5. I think that Stephen King is a franchise unto himself. So, yeah, I'm going to say over. And if Evil Dead Rise could do it with not amazing reviews, just solid reviews, good audience buzz, I think The Boogeyman can do it too. So yeah, I'm gonna say over.
I love this. We're 2 for 2 against each other so far. That brings us into the week of June 9th, and everyone's beloved franchise Transformers Rise of the Beast comes out this time. And we can look to the past for other Transformers movies, but I don't think that would be a great read because this one doesn't have Michael Bay at the helm, and it's not a soft reboot for the franchise, because they did have Bumblebee in 2018, which did perform pretty well at the domestic box office. That opened to about $21 million. They're projecting this one to open between 35 and 45, so our number is going to be 40 right here. Do you see this going above 40 or under? Because Bumblebee had pretty good word of mouth and buzz, even though it opened a little bit lower and made a pretty good buck for its budget. But this one, I feel like I haven't heard much about this, and it comes out in 2 weeks.
Yeah, Metacritic and Rotten Tomatoes still don't have this listed as a 2023 release. They still think it's coming out next year. Weirdly. Very weird. But 35 to 45, 40 being the middle point. That seems so low for a Transformers movie, so I'm gonna say maybe a little bit over. Maybe a little bit over. But also, I agree with you. I haven't heard much about this movie, but I know I am not the demographic for a Transformers movie.
Yeah, this is such a weird one to read because I know Fast X just came out and people are like, oh, it's gonna bomb, and it put up the numbers everyone thought it was gonna put up. Like it was just below Fast 9, and who knows? Maybe Rise of the Beast does the same thing where people think about 40 and it hits about 40. Going back to Bumblebee a little bit because I feel like it's somewhat of a comparable thing. It did 21 for the 3-day, but it was a Christmas weekend, so it did 34 for the full weekend. 34 still isn't hitting that 40 mark, so for me, I'm still gonna ride on the low end, but who knows? Maybe because it's reinventing the franchise here. It's bringing it back to a bigger scale. Anthony Ramos, he's not a huge star, but he's still a face. Bumblebee didn't really have that, so who knows? Maybe he's a draw to get people in the seats.
The difference is Bumblebee didn't have Transformers in the name.
Yeah.
Right? Bumblebee, some people might look at that and go, what's that movie about a car named Bumblebee? Let's move to June 16th weekend. This is the biggest weekend of the month because we have The Flash coming out this weekend. David Zaslav has made a big bet here in not pulling this movie due to Ezra Miller's shenanigans. So tracking right now for this says it's $115 to $140 million, meaning our midpoint here to go over under is 127.5 million. Now, something I just want to point out here is that is so much higher than what's tracking for Across the Spider-Verse, which is really shocking to me because Spider-Man is such a huge hero. No one cares about The Flash. Is it just because it's live action versus animation?
That would be my guess. It's live action. It has the Batman coming back. I mean, soft spoilers, I guess, but he's in all the trailers. And I don't know. It's DC's big film, and you asked me this question 3 days ago. I would say hard over. But there's some other tracking coming on the last few days that are saying it's projected to open like pre-sales around like 75 to 100 million, which is a lot lower than this 127 mark that we're saying right now. So I'm still going to switch things up. I've said under every time. I'm going over here. This is going to be the first over for projections. I mean, not everything can go under, but that pre-sales thing, they're down. But Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 did have very low pre-sales. Walk-ups were great. It's had a great run so far in the summer. So The Flash, everyone who's seen this movie just raves and saying, oh, it's like the best thing in forever. Maybe they're paid by Warner Brothers. Maybe they're not. But they've been loving it so far, and I feel like that's going to work for people.
I agree with you. I'm going over on this one, too. I think that The Flash is going to be huge. I think that it's going to do what Spider-Man No Way Home did, which is it capitalizes on nostalgia, and it brings in the older audiences as well as the younger ones. No one cares about The Flash. They care about Batman. And specifically, they care about seeing the multiple Batmans show up together, Ben Affleck and Michael Keaton. So, I'm going to say over on this one. And it breaks my heart that this is going to do better than Spider-Verse because Spider-Verse is going to be the better superhero multiverse movie this year.
Here's the thing, though. Flash could open higher. Spider-Verse can leg out more. Let's say Flash has a lot of initial buzz. People may just not come back and watch it because there's a chance where it does get overhyped, where people are like, this is the greatest thing of all time. They go out and like, no, it wasn't. Kind of like what Ant-Man had earlier this year. I mean, people weren't saying it's the greatest thing of all time, but it had a big opening weekend and then just died. I don't think that's going to happen for The Flash, but I think Spider-Verse is going to have very good legs where it may not hit that 100 million opening weekend, but I still think it's going to hit 250 to 300 domestically.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that tracks for me. So next up, we have our Pixar movie of the summer. Now, Pixar's had a bit of a string of some underperformances with Lightyear and with multiple movies going straight to streaming, from Soul to Luca to Turning Red. Elemental is back in theaters. Finally, but it's tracking to make a disappointing $28 to $38 million. Our midpoint there is 33, and it breaks my heart to say I'm going to go under on this one. I think that this is going to make less than expected. I don't think audiences are going to show up. I think that the way this is being marketed as it's Zootopia but with fire and water is not going to sell anyone on this movie. I think it could have good legs because I'm sure the movie's going to be good, but I'm saying under on the opening.
This is such a weird one for me because it has everything on paper. Just should be a big opening weekend. I mean, it has a fun, cute trailer. Like when you go out to the theaters, people are like, "Oh, that looks cute," but like the buzz online is so toxic for this movie. Maybe that's just a film Twitter thing, like in our like tight circle. But I'm not really sure how to read this. We are recording this episode before its official Cannes reactions, and that I feel like will be the definitive judge. Does it hit 33 or does it go under? Right now, I think those reactions will be very, very positive because if you look at what other Pixar movies go to Cannes, those movies are very, very positive. So I'm going over, and not by much. I think it could hit like 35 to 40, but that's more than 33. So we're switching here. You're on the under side, I'm on the over, but I don't feel great about it.
And our next movie is The Blackening. This is a little indie horror comedy. I've actually seen this one already. I saw it at TIFF last year. It's very funny. It does what it seeks to do. It makes you laugh. It gives you some scares. It's just a fun movie overall. Now, this is tracking to make 13 to 18 million dollars. The midpoint there being 15.5. And I'm going to say under on 15.5. I think this is going to make just around 10 million. I think it's going to deliver. It's maybe going to have some good legs as it goes, but I don't think it's going to open too high, especially as an indie.
Yeah, this is one that's kind of hard to read for me, at least. It's good to hear that you've seen it and that it is funny, because to me, the awareness for this movie seems nowhere, at least. But I get this trailer a bunch when I go out to the theater. I've gotten a lot of screening requests for it here in Richmond, which we don't normally get a lot. And the fact that they're doing 3 of these seems to be like they really want people to see this. So it could be something that opens lower but does like hold throughout the summer and be like, hey, we're not going to make a lot up front, but we're staying here week after week. Sort of like, I mean, The Black Phone wasn't a comedy, but The Black Phone did that last year where it didn't open as much as some people thought it would, but it held like crazy for a movie of its genre. So I'm going under. I think it's going to be a little bit under $10 million, but I'd love to be pleasantly surprised and have a weekend that has 3 big wide releases that all do a little bit better than expected. However, that marks the end of movies that we have official box office forecast tracking for. So all those ones, we have the experts. They went out there, they gave us their projections. For these next 2 weeks though, we're doing our own projections here. So they may be a little bit different from what the professionals say. So if you're watching this in the future, numbers are wrong. Hey, we apologize. We did our best. First one though, for June 23rd, we're going to talk about a movie that just had its official, screening, Asteroid City, Wes Anderson's new movie. And this is not its opening weekend, but this is its wide release opening weekend. And if you look to some of Wes's older films, like The French Dispatch, it took a few weeks to get into 1,000+ theaters, but it only put about 2.5 million. That was a COVID year, so we're scratch that. Isle of Dogs, on the other hand, took 5 weeks to get into 1,000+ theaters, but that put up about 5.5. So I would say Asteroid City's clearing markets are going to be about $5 million for this over-under. I'm leaning under, though. Where are you leaning?
I'm leaning under as well. I'm going to say $3 to $4 million. It's going to do better than French Dispatch. It's not going to do as well as Isle of Dogs. That's my general feeling about it.
Yeah, I've been getting a lot of trailers for this though. Like it's everywhere. Like every movie I go to see for the most part. Like I even got this in front of Fast X, and the people around me like, "What is this movie?" And I'm like, "Wow, Asteroid City in front of Fast X. They want people to watch it." But the Cannes reactions came out. They seemed a little divisive. I know some were saying like we love it, but some people were saying we hate it. And that's kind of how people felt about French Dispatch. Considering Asteroid City is doing the same rollout method where it takes a few weeks to get into wide release, maybe that mixed word of mouth affects it a little bit. I mean, the West fans are going to show up, but we just saw recently with A24, Beau Was Afraid, a movie that had pretty mixed reactions. While I don't think Asteroid City is having that hard of mixed reactions, the dedicated fans, they showed up week 1, but no one else really came out. So I think that $4 million mark's good, but that's still under the 5 that we are sitting here. However, another movie opening this weekend is No Hard Feelings, the new comedy starring Jennifer Lawrence. I'm loving the fact that she is getting back out there, bigger roles these last 2 years, and a comedy movie with her is something I've been wanting for a long time, and we're getting it here. This looks hilarious. We don't really have anything out there. I really don't have any stats here to go off of, but $20 million just is the first thing that popped in my head. How does that sound to you? Do you think that's too low, too high?
It sounds too high to me, but at the same time, this is the only big release coming out this week. And the question to me is just, are The Flash and Elemental going to hold strong week 2? Or are people going to be looking for an alternate? And in that case, I think if The Flash underperforms, this goes over. If The Flash is doing really well, holding great legs, then No Hard Feelings will come in like second, third place in the box office, and I would say underneath 20 at that point.
20 is a good number. I just did a quick box office mojo check. Blockers, movie that kind of gives off same sort of vibes, that opened to $20.5 million in its opening weekend.
What about Good Boys?
So, box office mojo, weekend of August 16th through the 18th, Good Boys opened to $21.4 million in its opening weekend. So both of these movies put up about 20.
Then 20.
So 20, look at me, so smart, putting in a good number. So $20 million over under. Like I said, I'm going over slightly, not by much, but I feel like the trailers look really funny. I've seen them in front of a lot of movies, and I feel like Jennifer Lawrence has, a built-up fan base that could show up opening weekend, especially if this does get good reviews. Where are you feeling?
I'm going to stay slightly under just because The Flash is the weekend before. I think that those legs are going to carry, and that's going to make it underperform just a little bit because, I think people are still going to be going to see The Flash.
That brings us to our last official weekend of June. June 30th, we have two movies. So let's start off with, the smaller one here. This is another one where it's kind of weird to place an official tracking number for because it's such a different type of anime movie. But Ruby Gilman, Teenage Kraken, I don't really feel that there's many great comparables for this, but going to the past, looking at some DreamWorks animation movies, Abominable pre-COVID made about $20.9 million, and The Bad Guys just last year opened at 25, and I know that tracking was saying around 15, so it very much overperformed. So at least to you, hearing those two numbers, do you think setting the mark here at like 18 sounds good? A little bit less than both of those? Or do you think it should be a little higher?
It's going to do better than Abominable, but it's going to do worse than Bad Guys because this one, it's a summer release, whereas Abominable came out in like October. So I'm going to say like 22.
So 22 should be our line, or 22 is what you're predicting here?
22 is what I'm predicting. So if, let's say Abominable is the line, I'm going to say slightly over.
And then I'll go under. I just feel like while the buzz is out there right now, I don't feel like really anyone's talking about this movie. I feel like it's one of those that will come out, no one really talks about it, and then it hits home video, Netflix. I know DreamWorks has a deal with them, and people are like, oh my gosh, this is actually like kind of good. I just feel like it's gonna be one of those movies that just suffers because it's the summer. Not everything can dominate. But that brings us to our last movie that we're going to discuss today, the big boy for this month. And honestly, you asked me 2 weeks ago, I would have said this is the biggest movie of the entire month of June. Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. As we said here, we do not have official tracking numbers for this, so our over-under line could be a little small, but Kingdom of the Crystal Skull opened, 15 years ago, 10 years ago?
Yeah,
that made about $100 million opening weekend, so I'm going to give this an extra 15 for its betting line, because it's been a little bit inflation. 115, I saw you went under. I'm going to lean under as well. I would have said 150 before Cannes, and those reactions really, I think, are going to tank this movie.
Word of mouth is toxic. They didn't expect to bring this to Cannes and get bad response to it. The fact that it has bad response for this long before is going to allow for time for people to decide they don't want to see this. I say this comes in under 100 million.
That would be awful for this movie because I know it has a humongous budget, and unlike Fast X can rely on overseas money. Andy, I don't know how that property is going to do overseas. It's been a long time, and Harrison Ford is an icon, but is he still an icon in overseas markets? And yeah, like I said, 150, asked me 2 weeks ago, I would have said easy peasy, but now 115 seems hard. I'm a little closer to 100, but I could easily see this bomb hit like the 80, 85 million and then just keep dropping each week, kind of performing like Ant-Man did earlier this year.
Yeah, I'm going to say, I think it's going to be around 90 to 95, close to 100 million, but I don't think it's going to scratch 100 million. I think that's going to be the big news at the end of June when this weekend comes about. I think that what we're going to see is it's going to come really close, and people are going to say, oh, is it going to cross 100? Is it going to cross 100? And then it won't.
Mm-hmm. Well, for everyone out there, definitely play along. Drop in the comments. Pick a movie here. You don't have to do all of them. I know we went over a handful of movies. Pick one movie you like. Tell me, is it over? Is it under from the lines that we set here? Stay tuned, though. Subscribe, because we're going to be doing this each and every month. Drop a like if you made it this far, because at least, maybe we were entertaining. But until next time, my name is Dyl.
And my name is Matt, and this is Fantasy Filmball.